morning, everyone. Before I do my reading, I just wanted to give you a little bit of the backstory and just take a minute. I mean, I didn't really know what to do for a reading for this service, and I mean, I searched a long way to try to find the best thing that I could, and it was a little bit kind of like out of my element of comfort, but I'm going to trust what the spirit world gave me was correct. When I first was asking the spirit world to help me, I came up with the author C.S. Lewis, and I had no idea of what to do with that. And then I actually found something from Corinthians, which I'm going to read to you, but I just wanted to explain something before I read it. Um, in undergraduate, I had a seminar class with a professor named John Ogden, and he would always give us like a particular quote from many sources, like different religious things. And this was one of the quotes, and I found it in my notes downstairs after 40 years. And the reference was from C.S. Lewis. So, I mean, I kind of thought that I was on the right path. And when I was taking this class, we had a lot of, because I was English literature, but I wasn't like in drama or anything, but I had a lot of drama students in my class. And sometimes they would get like outspoken with the professor, and the professor would politely rebuke what the student was saying and trying to show the student the correct way of looking at something. So the girl, when she read this passage, because he would give it to us as a quote, and we would have to like write a paper for it, and then he would read it and send it back to you. And he always sent mine back with a B, with what he called the gentleman's B, which meant like redo the paper and correct it. And then he would say getting better. And then probably by the third try, he would say, okay, now you've got it. So I mean, he would try to like correct you in like a way that was like nice and not punitive. But he would always tell me, Mr. Pawlowski, the denouement is at hand, and I never knew what he was talking about. But then I took a French class, and I learned that denouement is like the untying of knots. So he's like telling me that the result is at hand now, or the resolution is at hand. Then he would give you your paper back, and you'd look at it, and you want to sink down in your chair. But anyway, one girl strongly rebuked this one piece that I'm going to read, but I'll explain why. And she said that this is not, she said, I couldn't disagree more. And the professor got like kind of like his back up, and he tried to explain to her. He's like, look, he said, there's different types of love. There's human love and there's God source love. And in the way he was explaining, he goes, I'm not a religious man. He goes, I'm not like espousing like any form of religion. He goes, but I believe, but I am a spiritual man. And when he referred to the afterlife, and I mean, I always refer to the afterlife as heaven, but he referred to it as the spirit world. And it was my first encounter with anyone who had ever used that terminology or phraseology. And I mean, I never even knew really what spiritualism was. But upon reflecting back on it and thinking of how he told us things, I would say that he espoused the spiritual philosophy of life. Like he would always like ridicule people who would, or not ridicule, but he would point out to people who would spend a lot of time in the chapel, which was like me. He goes, God isn't confined to the chapel. God is found in the pristine beauty of nature. So like you would find God more like by walking by a lake, walking through a woods or whatever, and things like that. And he would say like part of the beauty of life is the mutability of life, that life keeps changing all the time. And then he would point out like a poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley, Mont Blanc, which I guess is a mountain in Switzerland. It's a long poem, but I mean, he would explain things like always with literature. And when he was explaining this piece that I'm going to read now, he explained it in terms of literature, which C.S. Lewis called it, and the book was called The Four Loves. And he said, there are three human loves. Storge is what we would call an empathy bond. Philia is a friend bond, and eros is romantic love. And he said to that, and he goes, and young lady, he goes, what you're referring to is eros. He goes, but what I'm talking about here in this selection is agape, which is the God source love of unconditional love. And he said, love is so misunderstood on so many different levels by people, because most of human love experience is conditional love, whereas God source love is unconditional love. So he goes, the type of love that's cited in this reading that I'm going to read now is called agape, which is unconditional God love, or what we call God source love. I guess, in terms of spiritualism, however we would do it. So I'll just read the selection and then I'll close. And thank you for listening to me. So it says, love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but rejoices in the right. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. So faith, hope, love abide these three, but the greatest of these is love. Thank you.